What if I told you that the entire global economy, every smartphone in your pocket, every modern car in your driveway, and every advanced weapon system depends on two tiny, fragile stretches of the planet? One is a small, mist-covered island called Taiwan. The other is a narrow, 21-mile throat of water known as the Strait of Hormuz. Most people go about their lives without ever thinking about these places. We scroll through our feeds, we fill our tanks, and we assume the machine of civilization will simply keep turning. But to the world's superpowers, these two locations are the only things that matter. They are the twin pillars of the modern age. If one falls, the global supply chain snaps. If both fall, the world, as we know it, ends. Right now, the clock is ticking. China is making moves in the Pacific that were once thought impossible, and Iran is holding a literal knife to the world's energy supply. This is not a drill. This is a look inside the silent war for global survival. At the absolute center of this storm is TSMC, the Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing company. To the uninitiated, it's just a company. To those in the know, it's the most important building on Earth. They produce over 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductors. These aren't just chips. They are the nervous system of every piece of modern technology. To put that in perspective, without Taiwan, Apple couldn't assemble a single iPhone. Tesla's gigafactories would fall silent within days. Even the US military, with all its staggering power, couldn't guide its most sophisticated missiles or operate its F-35 stealth fighters. This is why experts call it the Silicon Shield. For decades, this technological monopoly made Taiwan too valuable to attack, but too important to lose. It was a stalemate built on silicon. But the shield is starting to show its first cracks. China has just achieved something the West thought was impossible. Despite massive US sanctions designed to freeze Beijing's tech progress, reports are surfacing that China has made a breakthrough in EUV extreme ultraviolet lithography. This is the ultra-complex process used to print the world's smallest, fastest chips. For years, the US believed they held the keys to this machine. If China can manufacture these chips domestically, the silicon shield that protects Taiwan starts to dissolve. For Washington, Taiwan is a non-negotiable strategic asset. If Beijing were to take control of these factories, whether through a blockade or a direct invasion, they wouldn't just be winning a territory. They would gain an off switch for the American economy. Imagine a world where every Silicon Valley server, every banking network, and every military communication line is at the mercy of the Chinese Communist Party. It's a nightmare scenario that keeps Pentagon planners awake at night. But while the war of chips rages in the Pacific, another existential threat is looming in the Middle East. If Taiwan is the brain of the world, the Strait of Hormuz is its heart. At its narrowest point, the strait is a bottleneck just 21 miles wide. Through this tiny lane flows 20% of the world's total oil supply and a third of its liquefied natural gas. Iran knows it cannot win a conventional, head-to-head war against the United States Navy's carrier strike groups. So, they have perfected a different strategy, geography as a weapon. Iran's strategy is known as A-10 anti-access and area denial. They don't need to sink the entire US Navy, they only need to make the Strait of Hormuz impassable. If Iran shuts this door, even for a week, the global economy suffers a literal heart attack. Oil prices wouldn't just rise, they would go nuclear. We are talking $300 a barrel. Inflation would devastate middle-class families from Ohio to Berlin. The modern world would effectively stop moving. The psychological impact alone would trigger a global stock market crash that could take decades to recover from. If a blockade starts, forget the massive aircraft carriers. Those billion-dollar giants, while powerful, are far too vulnerable to sit inside these narrow, contested waters. They stay in the deep Arabian Sea, launching jets from a distance. Inside the throat, the US Navy relies on a wolf pack of Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. Their Aegis radar systems create an invisible dome of protection against incoming missiles. But the real danger isn't what flies through the air, it's what lurks beneath the surface. Iran has deployed thousands of smart mined acoustic and magnetic killers that can distinguish between a small fishing boat and a massive oil tanker. To clear these, the Navy doesn't risk human sailors. This is where the mothership comes in, the literal combat ship. Operating from the edge of the danger zone, the LCS launches the knife fish. This is an autonomous robotic submarine designed to dive straight into the minefield. Using high-frequency sonar, it hunts for hidden killers, allowing the Navy to neutralize threats without a single human life being put at risk. It is a slow, grueling chess match played in the dark, where one mistake could sink a warship and trigger a global depression. And then, there is the mosquito swarm. This is the nightmare scenario for any US naval commander. Iran launches dozens, perhaps hundreds, of fast attack speedboats. Each is armed with missiles or packed with explosives for a suicide run. They attack from every direction at once, trying to overwhelm the ship's defenses through sheer numbers. To counter this, the US calls in a legend, the A-10 Thunderbolt, better known as the Warthog. Though designed to kill Soviet tanks, the Warthog's 30mm Avenger cannon is a terrifying weapon against small boats. One burst can turn a speedboat into confetti. Joining the hunt is the Apache Guardian helicopter, ripple-firing Hellfire missiles from just feet above the waves. But even with this firepower, the challenge is massive. Iran has turned its rocky islands into unsinkable fortresses, hiding mobile missile launchers inside deep mountain bunkers that can survive almost anything short of a nuclear strike. This is tactical warfare at its most claustrophobic and dangerous. The world is finally waking up to the danger of this extreme dependency. We have spent 30 years building a global system that is incredibly efficient but dangerously fragile. We relied on Taiwan for our brains and the Middle East for our blood, assuming the peace would last forever. Now, the race is on. The United States, Japan, and the European Union are pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into the CHIPS Act, trying to build their own semiconductor factories on home soil. But there's a catch. You cannot replicate decades of specialized expertise and trillion-dollar infrastructure overnight. It takes years to build a foundry, and even longer to master the physics of 5-nanometer chips. We are in a race against time. The Silicon Shield and the Strait of Hormuz have defined the balance of global power for a generation. But in a world of rising tensions, that balance is more precarious than it has ever been. Are we ready for the day the chips stop flowing and the oil stops moving? The answer to that question might determine the fate of the next century. What do you think? Is the world doing enough to diversify its supply chains, or are we already too late to prevent a total collapse? Join the conversation in the comments below. We read every single one. If you found this analysis valuable, hit the like button and subscribe to Gulf Horizon for more deep dives into the forces shaping our world. We go deep into the forces that shape our world, so you can see the storm before it arrives. Thank you for watching.